Okay, so here with Lab 3-3 from Practical Malware Analysis. Again, here they give us an executable, this lab 03-03.exe. I kind of went the same way about doing it. I first did some static analysis, specifically with PEView. First, looking at the text section or the image section header pieces, no indication of it being packed, looking at the virtual size and also the size of the raw data. Next, going into the read-only data, the import table, we see a ton of function imports, all from kernel32.dll. The functions are everything from lots of file manipulation, process creation and process manipulation, as well as memory manipulation with these heaps, and also looking at environment settings. So again, hard to narrow down what it's exactly doing. This executable also had a resource section. I used Resource Hacker to open up the resource section. It recognized it as a Unicode. There didn't seem to be anything in it of note, and the book doesn't mention anything, so I'm assuming that was a dead end. So after looking at PEView, I originally had this set up with all my network tools as well as my local tools. But I know now that it's only does local things, this malware. So what I have open are Process Explorer and Process Monitor. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start Process Monitor, I'm going to set off the malware, and then I'm going to switch back over to Process Explorer so you can see it come up and then it activated and then it closed because it happens really quickly. And I'm going to do some things really quick that I won't explain, but then we'll get back into it. So here let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to start Process Monitor. I'm going to set off the malware here. Switch over to Process Explorer real quick. There it is coming up. Clicked on that. Okay. Alright, so now I'm going to explain what I just did. And so I'm going to stop Process Monitor here. Okay, so the first thing that you saw when I switched over to Process Explorer is that the malware successfully started. It then had was it this one? No, I guess it's not even up here anymore. But so the malware started, and then it started a child process called SVC host, which is what I clicked on really quickly. Now, SVC host, again, is a generic executable that runs in Windows in order to run services. So there's a lot of them, but this particular one was started as a child process of the malware. What also you didn't see really quickly, but if you want to do it on your own, is that when you view it here in Process Explorer, the parent process, like the lab 03-03 executable, closes before the child process does. Now the book mentions that this is pretty unregular behavior for just standard software and executables, which is true. Usually the parent process will wait for the child process to end before it itself ends. So that was a little suspicious. What I did really quickly was just to click on that executable so we can get the information about it before it closed out of Process Explorer. And so after some time, I kind of looked at all of these kind of sub-tabs up here. But the clue, or what the book says to find, is here in strings, actually, and toggling between the strings that are found on the image of this on disk as well as what we actually see in memory for the strings here. So the first thing, when you look at this, what you notice is that these sets are highly different. So that was another indicator the book says you should have noticed. Secondly, probably more important and specific, was that in the memory version, which is, again, this is like when it's loaded into RAM, we have this string, Practical Malware Analysis Log. Again, it's our famous string that we look for, as well as it has a .log. Again, because they make it obvious here, we're assuming that this is some sort of log file. Additionally, the set of strings in memory has all of these keys from a keyboard, and apparently this is also pretty uncommon. So you may be figuring out what this malware already is, but just if we didn't, we're going to keep going. We're going to switch over to Process Monitor. And so what I'm going to do in Process Monitor is I'm going to actually filter just for this executable, this child executable, which has a process ID of 668. So let's add a filter. Okay, so now we're getting everything that occurred with this sub-child process from the original malware. So when we see a lot of, and so I also have, I think, hold on, let me look at filters again. Okay, no, I don't have any other filters on. Okay. So this is everything that process was doing, and so you see a lot of things it's doing with the DLL, like loading DLLs. Right, nothing too suspicious as of yet. But what you're eventually, we do see that it is, querying information about our original process lab, lab 03-03. But I'm looking specifically for, here we go. I'm specifically looking for this activity right here, this big block, and you see that it's doing file, it's writing to a file, it's creating a file and writing to a file called practicalmalwareanalysis.log, which again is a string we found over here back in Process Explorer, looking at the image of it in or the program in memory. But essentially what causes all this file write activity is what you saw me do really quickly in the notepad is I wrote, did the malware catch this? And so what happened is that it did catch this because we can see that our malware child process was writing things to this log. And so if you haven't picked up yet, what essentially this malware is a keylogger. And so when I originally did this, I didn't obviously type anything while the process was running, and so nothing was caught in this, so it was kind of hard to tell. Because the book was saying you should see, file operations on this log. And so I did this so that we would see this here, and so you see a bunch of writing to this file. And so if you look at the path of this file, it actually is in the exact same folder that the malware is. And so if you open this, which is what the child process created, you see that it's catching all of my keyboard activity. It's a little bit off, and I'm not sure if it's because my keyboard and we're working on, Windows XP, but essentially got what I wrote. Did the malware catch this, and it actually caught my backspaces as well. Again, maybe because I have an extra sensitive keyboard, I'm not sure, but it's getting a few of the letters, but it's still we're able to make out what it recorded. And so essentially that's what this malware was. It was a keylogger, and it's actually still running. If I go here in Notepad and let's write something discernible. So I just wrote boom boom, and if I go here, do a quick refresh, and here it is. It caught enter boom boom on from that Notepad, and so that malware is actually still running. As for the questions, I didn't go question by question in this lab. But we kind of covered them all. The purpose of it is a keylogger. The host-based indicators would be this file here, this practicalmalwareanalysis.log file. We looked at the live memory modifications, which again was the image. Here in strings, the image versus the memory. And what did you notice when monitoring this malware? And that's essentially what we talked about in Process Explorer, where the child process was spawned and then the parent process died, which is unusual. And so that's pretty much it for Lab 3-3.